Will Clemson win another national championship? We'll talk about it right here on Locked On Clemson.
You are Locked On Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Tiger fans? Morgan Thomas here, Clemson fan, Clemson grad, host and producer of Locked On Clemson, part-time host and producer over on 105.5 FM The Roar. Thank you so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen of the day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And a big salute out there to you everydayers who stick with us Monday through Friday every single week. And if you're new to the show, what are you waiting for? 75% of you are not yet subscribed. So get in there, hit that subscribe button. We're getting close to 3,000 subscribers over on YouTube and on podcasts. So go ahead and do that and help out the algorithm. And also never miss another Locked On Clemson episode while you're at it. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. Oh, man. Well, it's the Monday after. It is after a loss against SMU in which Clemson really, got close, but never had much of an opportunity to win the game. It seemed they were playing from behind the entire game. It seemed as if SMU had answers to anything Clemson could do. And the key things that Clemson couldn't do, or didn't need to do, or shouldn't do, or should have avoided, they actually did those things and went right back to kind of what we now know is really the mean, what is now the average, what is now the expectation for this team, which is they're just not that good of a team. They can fight, they can hang. They're better than some of the worst teams in the ACC, but they're really just an average ACC team at that. And and it's really not one thing that you can pinpoint to say, hey, it's this or it's that. The big unfortunate thing is that it's a lot of different things that are kind of not working out appropriately. And now the fan base and the analysts out there are saying Dabo Swinney's time is up. Dabo's still coming out and saying that he's going to be able to win more championships and he'll get back to it. And this is just kind of a valley, and they'll learn from it. There'll be some good from it, and they'll be able to rebound from it. And what we had hoped is that the rebound would come in the same season as the valley. And what we are seeing is that is actually not the case. That is much further from it. And I believe that where the concern lies for me is that if you tell me Clemson's going to win another championship, I'm okay, I guess, if the head coach believes that, but I really don't believe that myself. And if I talk to a fan who does believe that, I have to wonder, what other things in life do they believe without having really any kind of proof at all in what's happening? I mean, what you're seeing on the field, it's getting worse. Most of the areas are not improving. The players that you thought would be good players are not living up to their potential. The position groups as a whole are floundering. The play calls on both sides of the ball seem to be, not working with the personnel that they have. There's not a lot of answers to this team outside of a few things here or there. There are some bright spots, but it does seem like a team that you really don't know what the future holds. I mean, even for a good team, do you think Kirby Smart is going to win another national championship? I mean, we don't know what Kirby Smart in Georgia is going to do. We don't know what Ohio State and Ryan Day are going to do. Just like those guys can't guarantee another win or say that there'll be more championships along the way. Dabo Swinney has no real true clairvoyance into the future about what he can do or what he can put together. And if anything, we're seeing the successful teams honestly do things that we'd want Dabo Swinney to do for years now, and he's just not done them or has been extremely slow to do those things. And so I'm not really feeling that attitude of, okay, yeah, I'm behind you. I believe Dabo can do it. I mean, how many top tier coaches lose their dynasty or kind of their dynasty ends and then they're able to get it back? How many teams go from national championship to playoff to then barely making a bowl game and then also come back to that? We thought Florida State would be that back and forth, but now we're seeing Florida State really was, fool's gold as well. We never thought Dabo Swinney would even be in this situation because of the recruiting that they had done and the types of players that they had on the team and all these things about recruiting rankings and everything. And the fact that they were returning a ton of players, but everybody across the board seems to be not improving the team. So at this point in time, especially after losing another game, it is very hard to me to think that Dabo can basically come back, and especially if there's not a lot of changes, that have to be made. And I don't know what those changes are. And I don't think I'm in a position to say who needs to go or who needs to stay. I don't know really any of that. But what I can say is that it seems as if they made minimal changes over from 2024 to 2025. And the idea was that they would get better. I mean, at the preseason, thought that the team just needed to be 10% better. I could have never imagined that the team would have regressed this much. They're really not able to hang with the other teams out there. And then I start to question, is it that Clemson has really regressed, or is it that other teams have just kind of continued to push forward and get better, where Clemson said, you know what, we like who we have and we're going to stick with what we have outside of getting a new defensive coordinator? They, for the most part, kept everything intact. They moved Adam Randall to a running back, and they brought in Will Helt in a transfer portal and Tristan Smith and Jeremiah Alexander, but they really didn't use those two guys as much as Will Helt. So they did replace and get in a new defensive end, and they got a new defensive coordinator. But for the most part, it doesn't seem like the team has really gotten better across the board. And the glimmer of hope that Clemson had was against two teams that really are in shambles themselves. I mean, Boston College couldn't even beat UConn last weekend. And North Carolina has a lot of internal things. They don't even know what's going on either. They had to give a vote of confidence back to Bill Belichick again, who we all thought he really didn't want to be in college anyway. He'd rather be in the professional ranks. One thing I'll say is that I made a comment that I feel like Clemson's this year is just the first year where I feel like it really has hurt Clemson. The past mistakes really hurt Clemson. And I had a few fans say, well, Morgan, I had a lot of people like that comment, but I also had a few people say, well, that's inappropriate. You need to be positive. You need to focus on keeping this team's, mentality high, and you need to support the team. And, they're in a fight here in this season. And really none of that is what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't believe that it's my responsibility to give you false hope. I don't believe it's my responsibility to tell you when I think they're going to win another championship when I really don't feel that way. I think it's my responsibility to be honest with you and say that my feeling on this team is that this was the best chance they had with all these returning players and all these veteran leaders on the team and a senior quarterback, and it has been an absolute failure. So 2026, 27, 28, 29, I can't see that far. I really can't. So it has been such a disaster this season that it's hard for me to look forward and say, they're going to be able to right the ship. Even with Dabo Swinney, probably the best coach to be able to build a team, a proven coach to be able to build a team. Can he rebuild something that he made himself? He rebuilt what Tommy Bowden did, and he changed what Tommy Bowden did, but can he change what he did? That's the big question going forward. Or is he out of time like some of the Paul Feinbaums of the world want to say? Really, I wish I could give you a definite answer, but right now my gut feeling is that it's going to continue to be some lull before it gets better. We're going to continue this discussion on Locked On Clemson in segment 2. Going to talk a little bit about those past mistakes that got Clemson where they are today. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many different ways to play. Built parlays, player props, even follow lines during games. It's really fun. And even when you don't know a ton, they have a research site over on FanDuel.com that can help you get into other sports if you're looking to for a new challenge. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. This episode is also brought to you by Quo. One of the tools that help make a huge difference for business owners is Quo, formerly OpenPhone. It's the same great business phone system you've heard me talk about before, but with a new name. And here's why it matters. Every missed call is money left on the table. When every customer conversation counts, you need a phone system that keeps you connected 24/7. Quo is the #1 business phone system that streamlines customer communications. It works right through an app on your phone or computer, so no more carrying 2 phones or relying on a headline. I love how Quo, formerly as OpenPhone, lets your team share one number and collaborate across calls and texts. See why over 90,000 businesses trust Quo, formerly OpenPhone. Get started free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/lockedoncollege. That's QUO.com/lockedoncollege. And if you've got an existing number with another service, Quo will port them over at no extra charge. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. All right, segment number 2. Thank you so much for being a part of Locked On Clemson today. The past mistakes, and I put these on X at the Morgan T Show, where I talk about different things about Clemson throughout the week, throughout the game. And, I tell you how it is. So if you're a fan who just wants to hear Dabo Swinney will win another national championship and he'll do it in the next 2 years, and I believe, and the one thing I do believe is that Dabo Swinney is a great head coach and has been a great head coach and knows how to win football games and knows how to build a football program. The one thing I don't know is that can Dabo do it when it's his own program he has to change? We've seen where he's changed Tommy Bowden's program, but can he change his own program? And it starts with a few things that I think are pretty easy to do and don't take drastic changes. I will say this, a reality check for you as well is, and for me, is if you're expecting, 20 new coaches tomorrow, or by the end of the year, 20 new coaches and 30 new transfer portal players, I think that you're probably not going to get that. Just like we shouldn't have been expecting a national championship from this team, I don't think this staff should be having some sort of expectation that they're going to wipe the slate clean. Dabo has built this program for 15 plus years, and he has his people in there from the janitor all the way up. So if you're talking about wiping the slate clean, you're talking about a lot of people that would have to leave and change to get new ideas out there. I don't think that is a realistic thing to do unless you're just going to change coaches. I don't think you should change head coaches. I believe you should keep Dabo Swinney as your head coach for the foreseeable future, because in today's day and age of college football, Dabo is not calling plays. He's not calling offensive plays. He's not calling defensive plays. He really is just the figurehead. As long as he continues to stay positive and continues shaking hands and kissing babies and believing in his team and being that rah-rah guy and finding these quotes and different ways to motivate his team and his staff and love on the people that he is, leading, I think he's a perfect head coach for the role. And I do believe that he can change things around. Will it be as fast as we want? Will it lead them to a national championship? I can't say with full confidence that it'll do that, but a 6-6 end of the season or a 5-7 end of the season, but Dabo should be able to rebound from what he's been able to do, what the team has done this season. And it starts with some simple things. The first thing is a little bit of what he did this year. He needs to do a lot more of that. What we're seeing in the top 10 teams across the country right now, when you look at the rankings and you take those 10 teams and you go on to ourlads.com and you look at in the 2 deep, what do the top 10 teams have as far as transfer portal players in the 2 deep on offense and defense? 17.1 players are in the 2 deep. So out of 44 players, 17.1 are from the transfer portal. So not 50%, but just under 50%. Clemson is at 3%. Okay. Or Clemson is at 3 out of 44, not 3%, but 3 out of 44. Okay. They have Tristan Smith, they have Jeremiah Alexander, and they have Will Held, which of those 3, Will Held is the starter. The other 2 are backups. But the other 2 have improved the team if you go back and look at it. So the transfer portal has to be used at the same level that the top teams are using it. There is no excuse why Clemson should not be doing the same as the rest of the market, the same as the competitors. If they do less than the competitors, it better be successful. And since it's not, we've seen it's not, then they need to do something different. The first thing is think about if Clemson improved their defensive end with Will Held, they improved their wide receivers with Tristan Smith, and they improved their depth of linebacker with Jeremiah Alexander. They made improvements with those 3 players. Think about if they would have added one running back that is a true running back. And you wouldn't have had to rely on a wide receiver that doesn't know how to play running back and trying to figure it out. Now, Adam Randall has done his best, and he has been a great player for Clemson. But think about if Clemson had 2 running backs that actually were good. Adam Randall wouldn't have to be the workhorse. Maybe the transfer portal running back could be the workhorse. Think about your offensive line. Probably one of the worst set of guards that Clemson's had in recent memory. What if you went out and got 2 offensive guards to fill in those gaps that could actually rotate and play? We were told that Clemson has about 7 or 9 different guards. They really ended up only using 2, maybe, or 5, maybe 6. And so total offensive linemen. So what I'm thinking is, what if you had 2 guards from the portal that could add in and improve this team? I think it would be able to not only help your depth, but be able to help your speed and be able to allow Garrett Riley to run the plays that he needs to run, which is that guard tackle counter, pulling of the guard, pulling of the tackle, pulling of the tight end. You have to have an agile offensive lineman that can do it. And what we're seeing right now is what Garrett Riley wants to run and what the offensive line can do doesn't work together. Imagine if you added 2 offensive linemen. Imagine if you added 2 linebackers instead of 1, and you had a better rotation there. And you had guys that were more height and weight specific of what you were looking for. Imagine if you had 2 safeties added to this team instead of using Hannafin, who's a converted wide receiver, and Ricardo Jones. And one of those guys was a speedster. You'd be able to stop a lot of these big-time speedster guys getting out in open in space. And I just listed to you 7 players on top of the 3 they already added in. So 10 total transfer portal players. That would still be below the national average of the top 10 teams. And that would have drastically improved this team. So the past mistakes start with being fixed through the portal. But the reason why they need to be fixed is because of recruiting lapses. You know, if you go a year, which they went a year and they didn't recruit a running back, you got to go into the portal and get a running back. If you go a year or 2 or 3, which they went 3 years of not getting a handful of their top options on the offensive line, You should have went into the transfer portal to offset times when your recruiting didn't work out for you. If you go on my X at the Morgan T Show, you'll see a whole offensive breakout for the past 6 years of every single player possible for the different position groups on offense that Clemson went after and didn't get. If you look at the offensive line, just imagine if they would have got Monroe Freeling. Just imagine if they would have got Spencer Fano. Just imagine if they would have gotten Brockermeyer. I mean, there are so many players that you look at this list, and if they just got one or two, but what did they do? They got the next best and then the next best. And when that guy didn't come in, the next best and the next best. And now those next best guys that committed to Clemson, they're now starters, but they're not really at the level that they were looking for at the talent level. So they didn't go into the transfer portal to get those replacements. And now Clemson's stuck where the competition that's out there in the ACC is going and getting and refreshing their groups faster than Clemson is. And so that's one of the big past mistakes that I looked at today that I would, I would encourage you to go check out over on X just to see the different players out there. Again, they've done decent at quarterback. They've done decent at tight end. They've done great recently at wide receiver. But if you look at it year over year over year, I mean, they missed after Will Shipley and Phil Maffa. They missed on a handful of guys at running back for 2 years in a row, and then they didn't get anybody in that third year. So for 3 straight years, they missed at running back. And now Clemson has a converted wide receiver at running back, and the guy they didn't miss at is a true freshman and not ready. So where are the gaps? Why are the position groups not looking as strong as they once were back in the day? Well, look at it. Hey, guess what? When was the last time Clemson's offensive line got their true top pick when they of all the guys they went after? Jackson Carman. Jackson Carman was the last time, 2018, when they went after the top guy and they got the top guy. That's at offensive tackle. When was the last time they went after their top guy and got their top guy at offensive guard? The year before that in Sean Pollard. And in between, or 2 years before that, and in between those 2 years, they had Matt Bockhorst, who was their only option at offensive guard, and they landed him. And you know those 3 offensive linemen? Wouldn't you like to have those 3 offensive linemen back? I mean, if you really think about it, those guys were their top choices, and they played like they were top choices. And so that's kind of what they've allowed over time. If you go back and look over 6 years, there are gaps where it's like, you know what? Clemson just didn't get any of the guys that they really wanted. And now they're having to play guys that were kind of third and fourth choices. And I know it sounds bad to say a player is a third and fourth choice, but that basically is what it is. You know, it's what it is, especially the way Clemson does it, where they basically offer in order of importance. So you know exactly who their choices are. And so that's where Clemson is at right now and what they've made. And to me, a quick fix for that is to just say, hey, you know what? We have to admit our error and go into the portal. And that could be a fast change for this team with minimal aches and pains in the offseason. I know a lot of fans don't want to say that. They don't want to hear that it's easy, or it could be easy, but that could be one thing that could drastically change the look of this team in 2026 and right a lot of errors or mistakes in the past. All right, hey, segment 3, we're going to talk about what other things Clemson can do to fix this team going forward. Let's be honest, most of us can't even name all of our financial accounts, let alone what they're worth. Between 401ks, savings, investments, it's easy to lose track, and that can mean leaving money on the table. That's why I started using Monarch, an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. It helped me organize my accounts, track my spending, and get a better handle on my investments without having to touch a spreadsheet. And I used spreadsheets for like 6 or 7 years. It was a nightmare because I kept messing up things and missing one penny here and there, and it was driving me nuts. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LockedOnCollege at monarch.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarch.com, code LockedOnCollege for half off your first year. All right, so I'm continuing to kind of look at what I talked about in over on X, and what are some things that Clemson can do to right some of the wrongs quickly. And when I say quickly, we kind of all have to admit that 2025 is not going to be quickly. And a lot of people got in on the radio today and said, 2025 for me needs to be no more Cade Klubnik, needs to be all guys who are going to play for 2026. Clemson needs to know exactly who they have so they can know exactly what they need to do in the transfer portal. I don't even think you have to even try to do that at this point. To me, Clemson has struggled to win games with their starters. They've not won games with their backups. And so I think it's going to happen whether you try to do it or not. I say you can't lose faith in one season, because then you could implode and not win any more games. I think you still have to play the best players, because that's the right thing to do. Even if you're supposedly trying to build for 2026, to me, you still have to play the right players and the best players for wins in 2025, because the season's not over. If you act in any way that the season is over, then everybody will believe the season's over. And, if you think it can't get worse, it will definitely get worse. So I don't want to see that. So what could be an easy possible fix? Well, we talked about next year or in the offseason, the portal, but when it comes to this year specifically, I think you still have to play your best players and do the best you can do. And really what it comes down to is trying to keep everybody motivated to win the bowl game, or get to a bowl game, win games to get to a bowl game, and win that rivalry game at the end of the season against South Carolina. The fan base will really rally around the ability to beat South Carolina. They'll be very excited about that, and it'll give the fan base some hope. Sneaking through some wins at home, like against Duke or against Florida State, could be a huge factor for Clemson as well. Might be a difficult win, but any of these wins is going to temper some of the frustrations from the fan base, and give some of the players a little bit more motivation to move forward. The biggest thing is kind of continuing to build and flush it. I talked about it on the post-game show. When it comes to this team and fixing it right now, the players and the staff just have to flush it and move on to the next week and try to win the next week and try to do things that improve for the next week. Maybe rotating players is a little bit more of an opportunity now. Maybe you do give Christopher Vezina an entire quarter instead of just scrap up time at the very end. Maybe you give Cade 1 quarter and then Christopher Vezina 1 quarter, and then Cade the 3rd quarter and Christopher Vezina the 4th quarter. I could see things like that happening, where you have a little bit more of a rotational spot as well. But even still, I think it all focuses around trying to do your best to win out the games one at a time for the rest of the season. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if some of the players, as you get closer and closer to the end of the season, start kind of looking at their NFL draft prospects and start to say, you know what, I'm going to hang it up early, and I'm going to kind of take a step away and prepare for the NFL. I don't see a lot of these veteran guys staying in for the bowl game, that's for sure. And you really don't really need that. The bowl game needs to be a reset to see what you got for 2026. But is the fix easy over 3 years? Well, I actually am a believer in you don't need a ton of changes in order to have some drastic changes on the team, because of the transfer portal. That is one thing that Clemson fans don't have a lot of experience with, is because Clemson hasn't really done it. They haven't used the transfer portal like other teams out there. So that's where I think Clemson can fix things quickly, is that they don't the fan base hasn't seen what a true team that uses the portal properly can do at Clemson. We haven't seen what Dabo can do with his mix of recruiting and what he can do with an average of the market for portal players. I mean, I do believe that this team would be drastically different with just 7 more portal players than what they used. So the easy fix is to get some fresh faces on the roster, but doing it is going to be tough because you've got some feeling that, we need to keep developing these players. Where I would say the growing pain is going to be is when you have those recruited players that weren't your first pick, second pick, third pick, fourth pick, and you stick with them for 3 years and 4 years, and they still don't have 50 snaps. That, to me, is where the pain point is going to be, because that goes against everything Dabo Swinney is about. Dabo Swinney is about sticking with you through thick and thin, being loyal, developing you to the very end, seeing you through to graduation. If you want to stay at Clemson, you can stay at Clemson as long as you need to, and getting you all the way through the program and then some. But we can list off a handful of players on this team that have been on the team for 3 or 4 years and maybe don't even have a total of 100 snaps under their belt. And so those opportunities need to be, in my opinion, a little bit less going forward in order to get players that actually can improve the team in 2025. So that's where a lot of the growing pains is going to go into. Another thing that a lot of people have messaged me on social media is about the position coaches. I'm not a big believer in that position coaches make a huge difference outside of recruiting. Players want to go play. Good players and great players want to go play for coaches that they can relate to and they can believe in, and that they can be a part of a program that they feel wanted and feel like a friend, feel like a mentor, right? So if you look through your staff, if there is anybody on the team that's just not getting it done in that way, are they getting repeated years where they're just not bringing in any top talent? Are they getting repeated years where the first and second and third best player on the board is not coming to Clemson? Are they getting any years where they have 0 commits at all? Those are the position groups where I have to say maybe that coach is not helping this team improve. As far as development, I know a lot of people don't like my take on development, but I'll give you my take on development quick, and I'll talk about it the rest of the week as well. Development is great, and I can hit 1,000 ground balls to the shortstop at practice, but at the end of the day, when it's 2 outs and bases are loaded, or it's 1 out and bases are loaded, and you need a double play, and it gets hit to the shortstop, and they can't turn the double play, or they can't field the ground ball cleanly, it's not coaching or development at that point. To me, you can develop a player a little bit better. But think about it this way. When you do college football on your video game and you're developing, the odds are you're not developing a slightly average or slightly above average high school player to an elite NFL player or a draftable NFL player. The odds are that is extremely difficult even for the best coach out there. The better chance is to make them incrementally better, 5 or 10%, right? So if you take someone who's just a little bit better than everybody, maybe a really good Greenville high school player, you can make them a little bit better, but they're not going to, they may never be as great as the best Atlanta player or the best player in the state of Georgia, right? So they could be incrementally better. But if you go out and you get one of the best players in the Southeast and you make them just a little bit better, now they're one of the best players in the country. That's the way I think about development. Is development matters. Coaching matters to develop incrementally and to get them sharp and cleaned up. but you need the talent to get you to what you're looking for as far as national championships. Going from 70 to 75, taking a player from a 70 to a 75, hey, you know what? You probably made a huge impact on that player, and you're going to forever be a mentor to them for the rest of their life. Taking a player from 90 to 95, not only did you make a big impact on that player's life, but now you've won an Outland Trophy. Now you've won a Blitnikoff. Now you've won a Heisman. Now you've won a playoff game with that player. And so those, while it is development, to me, I lean a lot more on what you're doing recruiting wise. And if you're missing on recruiting, like I said in segment 2, if you're missing on recruiting, then you have to replace and supplement that with going to the portal. All right. Hey, thank you so much for making this Monday edition of Locked On Clemson your first listen of the day. I know it's been a difficult season for us to get through, but we're making it. We're actually getting through one day at a time and enjoying each other, hopefully enjoying each other's time as we discuss how this team will rebuild and improve going forward. For your second listen, go check out Locked On ACC. Alex Donna, Kitten Gibbs break down the ACC and the college conference and all the rivalries and all the games in between. Go check them out. They're really fun and awesome listen. Locked On ACC, wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. And as always, Tiger fans, we'll see you tomorrow, and we'll see you at the top of the hill.